Let's now catch up with Kate McCann, our political editor, who was at Westminster. Hello, Kate.
Hello.
Welcome back. So the news is in. Anderson, Clarke-Smith have gone as deputy chairs of the party, and the split in the Tory ranks has now had a very bright light thrown on it.
It has, but their resignation letter, which is a joint resignation letter, makes for really interesting reading, because what they are saying in what is quite a long letter, actually, to the Prime Minister, is that they have voted with the amendments tonight because they feel that they can't not do that when they have to go and face their constituents. They say that they have on many occasions tried their best to alter legislation, to suggest changes, and to do as much as they can to fulfil what their constituents have asked them to do, which is essentially do more on immigration, but that they can no longer stay in the positions that they were in with the party's deputy chairman and continue to pursue that. The final paragraph of this letter is an interesting one. It says, "We commend your work on illegal migration so far and your commitment to implementing the will of the British people. The last thing either of us wants to do is distract from this. We both look forward to making this legislation work, to carrying out the will of the people, and to taking on Labour and winning the next general election." And they offer their continued support to Rishi Sunak and to the government. Now, the fact that that's been included in that resignation letter, for me, John, suggests that they recognise that this is a key moment now for the government, that there could well be talk, suggestion that this is just about as much as Rishi Sunak as it is about the legislation itself, and disquiet in the Conservative Party. And it looks to me like they are seeking to do all they can to head off that suggestion.
Right, but simply to say that they are not seeking to provide a distraction away from the work of Rishi Sunak. That's exactly what they've done. They're saying that they don't feel they can face their constituents on the doorstep with an election coming, with the policy as it stands. It makes it so much harder for Rishi Sunak to contemplate doing exactly that during the run-up to the election.
Oh, no doubt. It is a complete distraction. I mean, all of this is a distraction. When you've got hours and hours of debate in the Commons, like we've had this afternoon, where Tories are standing up, intervening on one another and debating what each other are saying, that's never a good look, let alone in an election year. But I think the fact that these two men are saying that, what they're trying to do is to quash any suggestion that this is about a potential leader, another wing of the party trying to take over, a leadership contest. Yeah. They don't want this to become tangled up with that message. They want to do all they can to try and win their seats, but they recognise that winning their seats means that they need to back, as tough a legislation as they possibly can. I mean, MPs at the moment are voting on Bill Cash's amendment, which is about legal protections. It's essentially about saying that, we need to remove the UK subscription to some things like the Human Rights Act in this particular context. I can see that the tellers are just approaching the bench, which means that we're likely to hear very shortly the result of that vote. It's very unlikely that Bill Cash's amendment will get through the Commons, but it does have the support of over 60 Tory backbenchers, which does tell you quite a lot about the strength of feeling, I think.
So, I guess we can expect that to be a fair indication of the size of the dissenters on the Tory benches. 66 last time. That's probably about the size of it, which is enough, more than enough, to defeat the whole bill and defeat the government if it joins with the Labour Party at the later stages when they're voting on the survival of the. But of course, that's a very different proposition, and already there were some of those rebels and potential rebels who don't want to go that far. That's the crucial question, isn't it, at the next stage?
Absolutely crucial. I mean, when you speak to some of these MPs about what happens at the third reading, and, Downing Street was asked today, do you want to make it a confidence vote? They have stepped back from doing that. But even so, when you speak to some of these Tory MPs, they are hesitant when it comes to voting against. If you think about it, the number who've backed this amendment openly, 60 plus, I would say at the moment, counting on my notebook, what we're looking at sort of maybe 10, possibly 12, I think at a push. Tory MPs who would look to vote against this bill at the third reading. I mean, that is obviously nowhere near enough to defeat the government. But it also tells you that they understand how high the stakes are here, because if the Tories do vote down this bill, there is a question about whether there is enough time to bring back anything else in this particular parliamentary session. There's also a question about how similar any other legislation could be, because there are rules about bringing back the same thing again if it's been voted out of the Commons. Yeah. So it puts them in a difficult position, and it also would lead to some really difficult questions, I think, for the party to face about whether they are following their leader in Rishi Sunak or whether everything is just fractured beyond repair. And if if number 10 wants an election in October, November, then they can't afford to be in this situation in January.
Yeah, bottom line, even if the bill survives and even if there's no challenge to Rishi Sunak, and maybe the odds are against both those things, this is still now a bad night for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's a good night in theory because you're not going to see those amendments sail through Parliament. It's a bad night in that losing your deputy chairman is never a good look. I mean, it's not something that Rishi Sunak would have wanted to see, but I think it has been priced in for some time now. And Downing Street, it's fair to say, have taken a very robust approach to this. They haven't wavered after second reading. If you remember that the feeling and the mood around that second reading vote, really, you know, it was on a knife edge, what was going to happen. Ever since then, Downing Street haven't backed down. They've said this is as tough as it gets. We've got, you know, lots of quite high bars for rebels to meet with their amendments. And number 10 don't feel that they've met them. So they expected a bit of a rough ride over these 2 days. They expected the backbench Tory MPs to have their say. But I go back to the tone of that letter. What Lee Anderson and Brendan Clarke-Smith have not done is written an incendiary note to Rishi Sunak saying, you're a terrible Prime Minister, you're not leading this party, we don't have any faith in you, and that's why we're quitting. They've said, we feel like we can't do anything else, we're sort of bound by what we've promised. We understand your hands are tied, and we still back you 100%. Now, you can debate whether or not they really mean that, whether or not they're saying that because they want to win just as much as the Prime Minister does, or whether they've sort of been, you know, been bound by, you know, the fact that they have been deputy chairman in the party and they want to do this in a way that is as painless as possible. But they could have done a lot worse by him, and they haven't done that tonight.